Welcome to clue number 5 of our Summer 2024 Mystery Quilt. For today's clue, you will need the medium light and dark fabrics. Consult your fabric key to make sure you're using the right fabrics. From the medium lights, cut 3 strips that are 4 1/4 inches by the width of fabric. I'm going to cut 1 strip from 3 different fabrics. Once you have the strips cut, stack them to make the subcuts. I will cut one of the strips in half at the fold, so each stack has 3 layers of fabric. Subcut 20 squares that measure 4 1/4 inches by 4 1/4 inches. As you cut the squares, carefully move the stacks to keep them intact. You just want to have a little space around each stack. Bisect each square twice, corner to corner, for 80 triangles. We're going to make all the same cuts from the dark fabric. You need 3 strips that are 4 1/4 inches by the width of fabric. Subcut into 20 squares that measure 4 1/4 inches by 4 1/4 inches. Bisect each of the squares twice, corner to corner, for 80 triangles. Now it's time to head over to the sewing machine. Today we're going to be using 1/4 inch seam allowances. With the right sides together and the dark fabric on top, sew the dark and medium light triangles together to make 80 larger triangle units. I have the dark on the right facing down and the medium light on the left face up, so when I pick them up, they are already facing the correct way to put them together. If you lead with the flat edge versus the triangle points, there is less chance of the fabric being pulled into the bobbin area. As I sew, I make sure the dark fabric is always on top. Let the machine set the pace. Just guide the fabric. Be careful not to pull or stretch the bias edges. When the larger triangle unit points up, the dark should be on the left and the medium light should be on the right. Cut them apart and then head to the ironing board to press. Press towards the dark fabric. All of these units should look exactly the same. Once you're done pressing, grab the bag for clue number 3 and head to the sewing machine. We're going to combine the squares from step 3 with these triangles to make some funky shapes. Pay careful attention to the video directions or your seam ripper might make an appearance. Count out 8 of these pieces. It doesn't matter which color fabric for the medium light you have on these. Whatever you want, pin them together and set them aside. They will be used in step 6. Combine 24 of the squares from step 3 with 24 of these triangle units. Sew the medium light fabric part of the triangle to the dark part of the square. If you've always been pressing towards the dark, the seam in the corner should match up. If it doesn't, turn the square 180 degrees and then it should line up perfectly. After sewing, when you open this up, the dark portion of the triangle unit should be on the left side pointing down. You will always be sewing medium light fabric to a dark fabric. If you are sewing a dark fabric to a dark fabric or a light fabric to a light fabric, stop and check your pieces to see what needs to be changed. All 24 of the units need to look exactly the same. Once you're done sewing and they're cut apart, head over to the ironing board to press. Press towards the triangle units. Press carefully. The bias edges of the triangles may stretch if you pull on them. Combine the remaining 24 squares from step 3 with the rest of the triangle units. Basically, we are repeating the last step, but also adding a triangle unit to the top side to make a parallelogram shape. When adding triangles to the top, the seams won't nest together. Just do your best. Pinning may be necessary to get the seams to line up perfectly. You may notice I'm not pinning. I'm making this project for fun and I'm not too worried about everything being perfect, and it's okay. I got close enough that if someone is riding by on a galloping horse, they'll think it's perfect. Press towards the triangle units on both sides. Now you have two piles of 24 units. Sew those units together. You should form a pinwheel in the center. Since we pressed to the triangle units, you should be able to nest this seam in the center, and you have little triangle points on both ends that hang off the edge. Make 24 of these units. Cut them apart and then trim off the excess triangle points. For this, we are going to press towards the smaller unit. Sew these units together to make 12 long units that kind of look like a mini table runner. It kind of looks like 3 pinwheel blocks with triangles on each end. The seam in the center should nest together, and you'll again have triangle points hanging off each end. As you're sewing it, it sort of resembles a V that has a flat bottom instead of a pointed bottom. Cut apart and trim off excess fabric. Press the seam in one direction. You can use some best press spray to help the units lay flat. Trim triangle points off the sides. These units will measure around 17 3/4 inches from point to point. Or, if you lay the unit underneath a 12.5 inch square ruler, the corners should line up with opposite corners of the ruler. Stack them up and store them in a bag with clue number 3 and clue number 5. Put it all together with the rest of your clues and your leftover fabrics. We will see you soon for clue number 6. Here's the pattern for clue number 5. You can push pause and take notes, or you can screenshot it to print at home. Or you can locate the pattern in the Files section of our Facebook group called The Quilted Forest Friends. Download it and print it at home. We hope you will hit the like button, leave us a comment and tell us how you're doing on your clues, share with your quilting friends, and subscribe. Thanks for watching and happy quilting!